Thanks everyone for coming today to our Homeless Services Task Force. I'm amazed actually that anybody showed up because it was hard enough for me to peel myself away from the TV today. I just want to take a moment of silence just to recognize the ridiculousness that we are all having to experience today, and hope that it never has to come to each of your own individual cities or this region in general.
Please come supporters back from the Capitol. You can see.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna go around and do introductions. I will just call out your name if you could just introduce yourself and where you're from, and we'll try to just move through that fairly quickly and then get on to our agenda. So Lori, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I'm Lori Jacobs, and I'm with the South Bay Cities Councils of Governments.
Fantastic. Grace?
Same here, Grace Farwell with the South Bay Cities COG.
Okay, David.
You're muted.
David Legier with the South Bay Cities COG.
Thank you. Brenda.
Brenda Williams with the City of Hawthorne.
George? Oh, George is on the phone.
George Gabriel from the City of Manhattan Beach.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Courtney.
Hi, everybody. Courtney Reed with PATH.
Jesse?
Everybody, Jesse Ramirez with St. Margaret Center and City of Hawthorne.
Sherry?
You're muted.
Always forget that. Sherry Weaver with Harbor Interface Services.
Lisa?
Lisa Gray with Harbor Interview Service.
Thank you. Landon?
Landon Phillips with the Hermosa Beach Police Department.
Brianna?
Judge Rem, Regional Coordinator for the Adult
You are in the meeting now. There are more than 30 participants in the meeting. This
Jasmine?
meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or
Oh, you're muted.
Hi everyone, Jasmine Loera with PATH.
Great. Janet?
Hey, Janet Turner, the Congressman Ted Lieu's office.
Great. Somebody has some background noise. If you could just mute when you're not talking, that would be awesome. Gabriella?
Hi everyone, Gabby Medina with the Office of Councilmember Joe Buscaino, the 15th District, City of LA.
Alex?
Alex Montero, the Mayor Pro Tem for City of Hawthorne.
Thank you. Kimberly?
Kimberly Mack, City of Hawthorne, Housing and CDBG Programs Manager.
Thank you. Jeanette?
Sorry, hi. Jeanette Christian with the Office of U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein.
Thanks for being here today. Mackenzie?
Mackenzie Bright, City of Rancho Palos Verdes.
Jeff?
Jeff Newman. Right. And sorry, it's kind of muting. Jeff Newman with Caltrans District 7, dealing with homelessness issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Jackie Backrack, South Bay Cities COG.
Aram?
Hi, Adam Chaparian, City of Torrance. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Hi, Jackie Arcos with the City of Gardena Human Services Department.
Jeannie? You just have to unmute, Jeannie.
Oh, hi.
Jeannie, do you want to just introduce where you're from, just so everybody knows?
I'm sorry, I was connecting the audio. I didn't hear what you had said. Yes.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
I'm Jeannie Naughton with the City of Rolling Hills Estates. I'm sorry I'm late.
No, that's okay. Thanks for being here. Chris?
Chris Pimentel, Mayor Pro Tem El Segundo.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Lamarque with Supervisor Hahn's office.
Officer Slater?
Hi, I'm Officer Slater with the Gardena Police Department.
Great. John?
Hi, John LaRock, City of Torrance Community Services.
Like the new office. Fit? Or Olivia? You just got to unmute, Olivia.
Hello.
Hi. You want to just say where you're from, Olivia?
Oh, are you calling the roll?
Yeah, not roll, just introductions.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Olivia Valentine, Chair of the COG, Councilperson, City of Hawthorne.
Thank you. Viet? Okay. Lori?
Lori Jones, City of Inglewood.
Isabella?
Hi, Isabella Blue with LA City Council Member Joe Buscaino's office.
Okay. Lance?
Lance Giroux, El Segundo City Council.
Great. Marco?
Hello, Marco Limas with the El Segundo Police Department.
Thank you. Zulma?
It doesn't look like she has a microphone.
Okay. And somebody named LP. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Happy New Year. I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to join us for our first meeting of the new year. There are meeting notes from November. Typically, unless there is something that anybody wants to point out in the notes that are incorrect, we just receive and file those. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you. All right. So we're going to move on to our first item today, discussing safe parking. And I guess, Jesse, that's going to be you.
All right, perfect. All right, so before I start presenting, did want to wish everyone Happy New Year's and hope we can pull off more extraordinary homeless initiatives this year, especially with the amount of talent in this meeting today. So my name is Jesse Ramirez. I serve as the homelessness liaison and city service coordinator for St. Margaret's Center and the city of Hawthorne. So today I'll be presenting on the results from the South Bay Safe Parking Survey created by the Department of Community Services in Hawthorne. And this survey initially was created not only in relationship to the latest homeless count results, but more so rather to gather feedback in how we as a community view the overarching homelessness issue and how we feel about implementing a safe parking zone in the South Bay. And as we are approaching a potential 2021 count for some cities, I did want to highlight and remind everyone of the numbers just very briefly. So some things that we may know already. One, there has been a gradual increase in homelessness throughout LA County for the past 5 years. Two, close to 19,000 people are living in their cars in LA County. Three, approximately 40% of people living in their cars are here in the South Bay. So that's close to 1,900 people. Also, another point, to my knowledge, and this is just to my knowledge, and from what I checked yesterday, there still isn't a single safe parking site in SPA 8, at least administered by LAHSA. And 5, just as a disclaimer, as a researcher and as a social worker, I abide by this framework: practice informs policy and policy informs practice. So in my observations so far in the work in the city of Hawthorne, we have seen an overall increase in both street homelessness and vehicular homelessness, which was also another conduit factor to creating the survey. And if I might add, the statistics not only represent the growing issue and concern not only for Hawthorne, but obviously for other South Bay cities, especially in this call. So we'll go over to the next slide here. And in its simplest description, safe parking is a site, a lot, or a space where people living in their vehicles can have a safe and legal place to park and sleep at night. That's the most simplest terms of what it is. Some city ordinances do prohibit people to do so, which leads these folks to find other streets, residential streets, residential business lots and whatnot, vacant lots to park their cars where they know they won't be cited. So just as a general overview of criteria, state parking programs are available to individuals and families who experience homelessness, or if they're actively fleeing intimate partner violence. They have to be living in their vehicle, and they must have an operable vehicle as well. And this survey was live from June to November of 2020, in which it garnered a total of 44 responses. And I'll say this, although this survey does serve as a preliminary community needs survey, the responses here are valid, and they do come from people impacted by homelessness in some way, as the population of the participants are either providers and residents of SoCal. So let's go on to the slide 3 here. So as I present this, and before I present the results, I do want us all to be mindful of these folks who are living under dire and stressful situations like Yvette. This is how Yvette lived life for more than 2 years until she was finally linked to Project Roomkey back in June with the help of St. Margaret's Center and ongoing assistance from PATH and Harbor Interfaith Services. So this is certainly the time to give a nod of appreciation to all the homeless service providers out there. So in this survey, there were 4 main points that we wanted to hone in on. And in this next slide, we're gonna give three of the points, and then the next, and slide 5, I'm gonna hone in on the 4th one. So the first one, 84% of participants supported safe parking in Hawthorne. 90% support safe parking sites in the South Bay region. So this means 2 things: strong measurable support for safe parking in the northern hub of Spot 8, but also very strong sentiment and adamant support for, incorporating this type of program in other South Bay cities. And an implication that we did find, just being transparent, although 44 people participated, only 38 answered this question as to where the respondents lived. 68% of the survey participants lived in the South Bay region. So it's not as high as we expected it, but it does not mean that we have negated or discredited their responses, nor the overall responses of the survey. So this next slide is the 4th point. And this graph represents the answers to the question that was asked: what other South Bay cities should, could, or would consider safe parking programs? So as we see here, beach cities topped the most responses. And in fact, Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach were the top cities mentioned. But we decided to group beach cities all together, given the current service provision model. Torrance took second with 18%, followed by Gardena, Inglewood, and Lawndale. And something that I found interesting and something to consider too when looking at this, the last 3 cities do fall into the northern hub region of the South Bay. And northern hub, where I'm also at, still considered one of the most impacted areas of homelessness, especially with gaps related to services and programs here. So just to close off, data from previous homeless count results, social service and homeless providers, the coordinated entry system, other community-based coalitions, have not only documented the need for additional services, but have also called and advocated for these innovative programs. And we do ask everyone in attendance to consider these results in your upcoming budgets and upcoming plans. As for Hawthorne, we're still in discussion about the how and where if we were to move forward with safe parking. We're also in discussion if we plan to elongate this survey to garner more responses. But one thing is definitely for sure, this traction has been created, and it only occurs when we're all on the same page about one grounding ethical principle is treating these folks with respect and dignity. So on that note, I thank you for the time, consideration. I'll welcome any questions, comments. I don't want to take away too much time from Gabby, because I know she's next, but here's my contact information if you all would like to contact me. And thank you for the time and consideration.
Great, thanks, Jesse. Are there any questions for Jesse? I don't see the raise hand feature in the participants window, so just raise your hand physically and I can call on you. Go ahead, Gabby, are you raising your hand or?
Yes, thank you, council member. So I do have a question, Jesse. What do you plan to do with this information? Is this being used to incentivize creating safe parking locations throughout the South Bay cities? And it looked like the survey number was 44. Was that the total amount of people surveyed?
Yeah, so to answer your second question, 44 people did complete the survey. In response to the first one, we're still in discussion of, I can speak for Hawthorne, we're still in discussions of the how and if and what we want to do with this information. But if anything, this just serves as a good grounding step for not only Hawthorne, but everybody else in this call, just so we're all aware that, that first South Bay not only deserves, but also needs a safe parking program, but there's interest in it. So if anything, Gabby, we can talk offline about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We have a safe parking program in our district, and we are opening 2 additional sites. However, they're not as used as much as we would love for them to be, due to the fact that they do not have the most ideal setting. They're only overnight. And something that would be more suitable for this population would be a 24-hour, facility that really comes with the amenities needed for what they need. I actually had a meeting today with other district directors in the city of LA, and we're going to convene an ad hoc group on RV dwelling and how to really, 1, assess the needs that they have, and then 2, how to have a policy in place that will allow them to dwell on the streets as we do right now in the city of LA, while ensuring that adjacent entities are not affected by either the debris, the gray water, or whatever it may be. So we do have a pilot program in the city of LA, and I was going to ask if you wanted to join. You're more than welcome to join us in conversation, just so you can see how we move forward on our policies and protocols, and if that's something that we can mirror here in the South Bay with the remainder cities.
Thank you, Gabby. Any other questions for Jesse?
I have a question for Gabby.
Okay, go ahead, Olivia.
Yes, hello, Gabby. My question would be, when you set up the sites, how did you do that? You said you don't have them set up 24 hours a day. So you set them up, I'm assuming you have signs that say what hours the site can be utilized. How exactly do you do that?
Right, that's a good question. Thank you. 3 sites. The first one is the WLCAC parking lot in Watts. The second one is the San Pedro Municipal Building in San Pedro. And then the third one is the HACLA administrative office in the Harbor Gateway. So with that being said, all 3 facilities have regular programming that happens throughout the morning between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So that is how we develop the hours for folks. So it's usually between 6 and 7 p.m. until the rest of the following morning. We have showers, restrooms, as well as an admin trailer to be able to provide services. And we work with our outreach teams within that area to go out and do outreach at the RVs, at the vehicles, and let folks know, hey, this is a service that's coming down the pipeline. Would you like to be enrolled? And once they're enrolled, they have access to that site for as long as it's up.
And how many people do you service at a particular site?
2 of the facilities are 40 units each. One of them allows for RVs because the parking lot is very big. That's the one in the Gateway, and that one should be open pretty soon. The one in San Pedro, isn't big enough for RVs, so we're only doing vehicles there. That one is for 25, and then the one in Watts also for 40. And the program is funded through LASA, through the Safe Parking Program.
How do you provide for security?
The budget. So the budget for each site, I believe, is about 250,000. That covers your security, your social service provider. And the good thing about us is all two of the sites are in city facilities. So the lease is $1 a year. But if you have to account for, and then the WLC has the contract for the other one, and it's there on their own ground, so they don't charge themselves. But that does pay for caseworker, pays for the amenities of restrooms, sinks, and anything else that you may want or need.
You good, Olivia, or?
Yes, thank you.
Gabby,
Course,
Gabby, why don't you just keep going and continue
Oh.
on with your presentation, and then we'll just go back to questions when
Okay, thank you, wonderful. Lori, I know that safe parking went right now, but you wanted me to speak about our pallet shelter, or?
No, you're listed under safe parking.
Oh, under safe parking, okay. So safe parking, like I mentioned earlier, it's the concept, in theory is great. We obviously, 30% of the people experiencing homelessness in CD15 are living in RVs or vehicles or vans, and that's a very significant population out of about 2,400. So you can only imagine about 800 of them are utilizing vehicles to live in. And so there are some impacts that happen. While there are other families and individuals where you pretty much don't even know or can notice that they're on the streets, that they're living there. The reason why we support safe parking is because once residents start to complain, or the debris starts to accumulate on the streets, having them in a parking lot or an area that is secured and that has the appropriate services, you have the ability to, one is obviously support the needs of that individual or family, and enroll them into the social services that they need, as well as two, you have a constant communication with them, and it's easier to get them into housing once housing does become available. But three, also, aesthetics wise, like it doesn't impact the community. Unfortunately, all of the safe parking programs that we have in the city right now, and really in the county, if I'm not mistaken, are only overnight. And so that doesn't necessarily help the individual who's struggling to put gas in their RV, or the individual who is literally sitting in a box because their RV is not mobile, or they don't have any working utilities or a working septic tank. And we do have a lot of those on the city of LA streets, which makes it very difficult for us to really maintain and really have a grasp on. But our three safe parking programs, like I mentioned, the first one, it's up and running, it's in Watts, and that one is for singles as well as families, and it operates out of the WLCAC that's located on Central and 108th, and that's in SPA 6. The WLCAC works with Hopix, they work with LASA, St. Joseph's, as well as themselves, to make referrals and to bring people in. Although they do have over 40 people enrolled for the 40 spaces, they don't always reach capacity every night. And that's because some individuals just won't make it there. And so we feel that if individuals were there or were given the opportunity to remain there 24 hours a day, it would be a lot more successful. However, we understand that not everyone has the opportunity, or in the budget, it's not even there also to be able to run a 24-hour program. Nonetheless, we wanted to expand the program because it is available for funding, and we are partnering with VOA to bring Volunteers of America, excuse me, to bring a safe parking to San Pedro in our municipal building. So our city hall lot, where building and safety, transportation, engineering, and the fire department, and even the council office parks during the day, will be made into a safe parking facility in the evening. This is why Councilmember Buscaino says, instead of going out and looking for resources, let's see what we currently have under our control that we can definitely lease for $1 a year for the benefit of those experiencing homelessness. The second one to open soon is the one in the Harbor Gateway area. And that one, our partner there will also be the WLCAC, since they already have experience in running this type of program. And that one will be available for RVs as well. We have a large population of RVs due to the fact that 8502 was passed in the city of LA, and 8502 is a municipal code that allows people to dwell in their vehicles based on planning and zoning. And so you are able to sleep in your vehicle 24 hours a day in areas that are zoned heavy industrial, like an MR2 or an MR. And 40% of our district is zoned in heavy industrial because we have a large industrial area associated with the Port of Los Angeles. So that is how we came with having this many individuals in our district. After these 3 safe parking programs go in, I do not know if we'll pursue additional ones, simply because, like I said, the program is there. It's a great one for those that it does reach. But for those that it doesn't reach, we need to reinvent the wheel and start talking about programs that will encompass everyone that's experiencing homelessness while living in a vehicle. So we are putting together an ad hoc committee to talk about how the city of LA can introduce a policy that does not discriminate against those living in their vehicles, but instead provides septic tank services as well as social services needed to meet them where they are literally while they're on the streets. But that's pretty much what our program consists of, and I'm more than happy to take questions now.
Great. Gabby, would you be able to share with Grace and Lori kind of the steps you've taken, how you did it, and just something that other cities could use as a template for having this conversation at their own local level?
Yeah, I can definitely share the contracts with you. I know they're very extensive, but I can work on a one-pager that way to just kind of walk you through the process that we went through. But as always, I feel like our city just makes everything more complicated. I'm pretty sure every other city can find a way to simplify the process and definitely expedite this type of service.
Absolutely. And Grace, it's been a while since we actually had a presentation on creating safe parking, well over a year, I would say. Do we have any in terms of LASA or any organizations set to come back soon to try to help guide cities through the possibility of creating this and using them as a outside contracting agency like we've had in the past?
Well, funny you should mention that. What a great lead in. I actually have reached out to the city of Culver City because they themselves are developing a safe parking program, and they've run into issues because theirs was supposed to start back in the summer, I believe, and now they're looking to kick off in February. So I've invited Helen Chin, who's assistant to the city manager for Culver City, to come at the March meeting. She wasn't able to come for this meeting. But also too, we could then invite LASA to come and talk about what the funding opportunities are moving forward and what we might expect to see down the road. So there is, so we can kind of focus our March meeting a lot more on continue the discussion on safe parking.
Okay, and then my final question would be, there were some innovation funds, and I feel like one of the innovation areas did deal with safe parking. So do you want to touch on what is possibly available to cities right now or not?
Yeah, we can, and you're right. We do have some innovation funds that are available. We have some seed money that can be utilized potentially by a city for to start a safe parking program. So we have, I believe, $100,000 in the innovation funds to be able to work with the city, and that could be, like some of the seed money. Because actually, Gabby, I had a question because you had said that there's about a $250,000 budget. Does that differ between WCLAC's site with 40 versus the municipal building that may have?
It does. So LASA has 2 different budgets, and it's all based on 1, the number of vehicles that you can accommodate, and then 2, the amount of services that you're able to provide. So some facilities will get a greater budget simply because they can provide meals. They can provide additional services if it's going to be families with children, possibly tutoring. I don't know if it's daycare. So it depends on what you're able to provide. And it also depends on the site where you're running the program. If it's your own site and you're a nonprofit and you can expand those services, then wonderful. But others are limited because they're having to bring their services onto that site.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then Grace, before I call on Jeff and Alex, the innovation funding, I believe, has a terminus, right? That money has to be used by the end of this fiscal year. Is that correct?
No, actually, as of yesterday, we received notice from the county that the funds can be, they will be extended until the end of the calendar year.
Okay, great. Good to know. All right, I'm going to go to Jeff, Alex, and then Lori.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about the echo. So it turns out that we have in Caltrans a program where we can lease part of some of our land, which sometimes is part of a park and ride, which is what we use for the bridge housing down on Beacon Street, also for safe parking. And we have part of a lot that might be available for that on the 105 at Hawthorne. So we're also looking to do that with the city of Los Angeles. It's been moving along, and 2 other places. One was for pallet, one was for safe parking. It does require FHWA approval. In 2 weeks, we will have a different FHWA start taking place, so that'll expedite things, right? So I just wanted to let you know that, and who best to. My question would be who best to correspond with in either this group or Hawthorne or whoever would be the appropriate party.
Okay. I would definitely, Jeff, if there are sites within, the district that are available now or coming available, definitely send those to Grace and or the representatives from those cities. You do have 2 reps from Hawthorne.
Yeah, I just need it. I just need their contact information.
Yeah. So why don't we go to Alex, and then he can give you his and Olivia's contact info.
Thanks, Christian. Again, happy New Year to everyone. I hope everybody's safe. My question is for Gabriela, because the safe parking, when we're talking about, it was something that was like overnight, right? Primarily. And now if you go to 24 hours, so those safe parking now become almost like an encampment. And can you talk about that?
Yeah, it would become almost like a mobile home park, right? I'm actually in conversation with my colleague who represents Council District 7 in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. There's a company called, I believe they're called Ocean's 11, who does this as a for-profit business. And we would definitely be interested in hearing about that, because you're right, what it would entail is just it's almost like a temporary permanent structure for folks to remain, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, whatever you call it. And so you would need the infrastructure on site to be able to support the needs of those vehicles, whether it's, a septic tank or someone to come in and pull the gray water on a daily or, maybe every other day type of thing. And you would have to make sure that the RVs meet certain health code, requirements, so that folks can live in a suitable public health, environment. But again, we don't have this quite yet, because it is a huge undertaking. It's not as easy or as cheap as one would think. It would actually require a lot of infrastructure improvements. But you're right. It literally would be something more permanent in a sense.
So what about instead of these 24-hour, safe parking, what about make them, shelter or housing, like to project key or some other type of housing?
Oh yeah, we do. So, and I can actually, I'm not sure if Lori or Grace can share our CD15 housing solutions. So we have 3 bridge home shelters, that's 300 units. We have a pallet shelter that's going in. It's actually going to go before the Board of Public Works this Friday, and it goes to notice to proceed in 2 weeks, and that's 75 tiny homes. We have a total of about 2,000 units, 900 temporary and about 1,200, excuse me, permanent, that are going into our council district alone. So we have a number of solutions. However, people living in their vehicles is still a very significant population, and not everyone is ready to let go of their vehicle or to transition out of the vehicle and live, in a brick and mortar type of thing. So it's just providing solutions for a variety of solutions for the variety of population that we have.
Thank you. Now, my question to Jeff Newtman. So if the Metro is willing to lease the property, what about thinking about, long-term leasing for us to create housing for the homeless? I don't know if you listened.
Jeff, that question was to you if you didn't catch it.
He's mute.
I'm using my phone and sometimes with that. So the lease for under the executive order 2320 is for 3 years with some out years. So it's under emergency shelter under that executive order. So it's not about building homes on the properties. Okay. There's another executive order that the Department of General Services has in regard to building houses on state property. And I'm going to put my contact information on here so we can expedite your meeting, and you can call me and all of that, and anybody can call me and go over it tooth and nail.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alexander, just if I may, Councilmember Horvath, a good alternative for that would be a pallet shelter on Caltrans property, because those are easily moved. They're not permanently stapled onto the ground. And we actually have our bridge home in San Pedro is on Caltrans property, and it's a temporary facility as well. And that's a 3-year life. And Jeff actually helped us attain that. So a pallet shelter would be, I think, a more cost-effective alternative for you than like a full-on bridge home that we did. But yeah, that would be good.
Okay, you good, Alex? Okay, Lori, go ahead.
Hi, Gabby and Jesse, both. Thank you for your presentations. Hey, Gabby, just a couple of questions on safe parking. I know that about a year ago, they were talking about college campuses because they said there was such a high percentage of college students living in their cars. Of course, I don't know if they're still living in their cars and they're doing virtual school out of their cars. So I don't know if that's still on the table to take a look at. I love the idea of 24 hours because if these people aren't employed and don't have a place to go to, but doesn't that limit things? I mean, the 3 that you have in process right now, if those parking lots are being used as parking lots during the day, how will you use them 24 hours? Are you finding alternative parking places for the people who are using it as a parking lot?
Yeah, I think that what we need to do better as a local government is incentivize private property owners to turn over their empty lots for this type of use, and really be able to identify, the funding that it would take to actually to run a 24-hour facility on a private property. It's just budgetary wise, it would pretty much drown us. So I think that that's what we're looking into, but we are constantly in conversation, especially in our district. We have a very significant population of industry-based partners that do have very large underutilized parking lots that have spoken to us about the potential of doing homeless solutions. What's stopping us as a city is the liability component, right? We're able to control what we have as landowners, but once you work into the private market, it just becomes extremely unsure and unsafe for us. But we're not giving up. We're still looking into that. Secondly is the college student one. That's where we're building our pallet shelter. So our pallet shelter will be across the street from Harper College at the Harper Sports Complex parking lot. It's right across the street from the Harper College admin building. And we're doing 75 pallet shelters, of which more than half of those will be designated for the transitional age youth that are homeless in our district. And that would cover 100% of that population. So LASA is currently working the numbers and pulling all of the data needed to let us know what's the total amount of TAY in CD15 so that we can refer them to this specific site.
So would you be targeting or making available to college students since it's across from a college campus? That's what's included in the TAY?
Correct.
Okay.
And I've also been in touch with Sherry, who I think is also on this call. I thought I saw her earlier. She has a caseworker at Harbor College who works specifically with the homeless population there. So again, we are in the early stages of this. Once we get our notice to begin to move forward on this project, we can start formalizing those conversations a little bit more and really start to see how we can really formalize that agreement between those students and giving them a pallet shelter for them to live out of.
Great.
Quick question.
Thanks. Go ahead, Lily.
Hi, thank you. Gabby, I'm wondering if we have data or information on how much roughly these private parking lots make during daytime, and whether it's a matter of, do we offer them the same amount or a little more to create the 24-hour and incentivize them to give it to us during the day?
You know, Lily, that's a really good question. I find it funny that I think I've spoken to at least 10 private property owners who have lots that are not utilized at all, like empty, right? And so they're not making any revenue. And as soon as we start having a conversation about this being a potential idea, they love it. And as soon as they see the City of LA logo on it, they think money. And once they think money, of course, they will think that we, just have the deepest pockets in the world, and the prices are outrageous. I got one in Harbor City because we don't have many programs that we don't own any land in Harbor City to be able to develop into housing. And I had a private property owner tell me that he would rent it to me for $20,000 a month. I'm like, $20,000 a month? Are you kidding me? That's what's costing me to build it. But it's ridiculous. And we're hoping that we can identify private property owners that will enter into a long-term lease with us, 3 to 5 years, and that would do something that won't necessarily throw the budget off for any project.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any last questions before we move on to our next item?
Christian, I just want to make a comment that I put in the chat box, the CD15 Homeless Solutions Action Plan, to which Gabby alluded. It's
Okay.
also available on the COG website under the Homeless Services Task Force from the November 4th meeting.
Great. Okay. And then Gabby, thank you. I appreciate if you do put together some type of one sheet and send that to Grace, and then she can forward that out to everybody on the call. And that's really exciting to hear about the TAY community, because as I recall, that was one of the largest growing segments in last year's count. So congratulations on that. Okay, moving on. Vaughn is not with us today. So Brenda, I think you're gonna do the update on veterans housing in Hawthorne.
That is correct. Okay, and let me just say that I have no answers.
Okay.
So, but it is from the desk of Greg. How do you say his name? Tusici. And it simply states that the City Council met meeting held November 24th, 2020. The City Council approved entering into an exclusive negotiation agreement with Skid Row Trust for the development of an 18-unit veteran housing project in the city owned parcel adjacent to 14115 Cordery Avenue. Skid Row Trust is proposing to use a large amount of competitive low-income housing tax credits that will apply for using the city's land contribution and housing funds as leverage. In addition, Skid Row Trust will be seeking veteran housing and homeless prevention program funds. The ENA is an agreement where we discuss and negotiate the terms and conditions to be included in a deposition and development agreement. This ensures that both parties are only dealing with each other in good faith and not any third party. It also provides time for the developer to conduct their due diligence investigations, such as environmental analysis. The DDA is the formal agreement that will transfer or sale of the property to Skid Row Trust Identify the terms and conditions of that sale. For example, what they can build and what they must be included, schedule of performance, the escrow process, and all negotiations of both seller and buyer, etc. And at this time, the ENA is in the hands of Skid Row Trust for them to review and execute.
Great. Alex or Olivia, from the council perspective, did you want to add any color to that, just for everybody here?
I just wanted to just mention that when we had the discussion at the council meeting, one big issue was parking, and so that's something that we're going to be in negotiation with them, because we felt as though they needed to make sure that they had adequate parking as part of the complex. And we felt that that there needed to be more work on that. So we're going to be following that issue pretty closely.
Yeah, I concur with that. Yeah, they present a very beautiful project with 18 units, with plenty outdoor spacing for the veterans, but parking was insufficient. Was not sufficient for our needs, because Hawthorne, we have parking problems, especially on that area. So they're going back to the drawing board and come up with a new plan of design. But their design was a beautiful project.
Wonderful. Well, maybe sometime in the coming months, as it starts to move forward, you can bring back and show us maybe some conceptual drawings and just give us a little bit more of an update on it as it moves forward.
Mm-hmm. And Christian, I just want to make one correction for our department. It's a recent development. We are no longer the Recreation Community Services Department anymore. We're just the Community Services Department now. So in your notes, you can just make that change for us.
Grace and Lori will take note of that. So perfect. Thank you. And then, are there any questions for Brenda, Olivia, or Alex as it relates to this project? Go ahead, Janet.
Are they saying it'll take about 2 years from now to get this up and going, or longer?
Alex?
Yeah, originally it is 2 years. Yes. So we're hoping, even if possible, maybe 18 months, but we will see when they come up with a new concept of this, like we want.
Good luck. It sounds great.
We're very excited about it. We're very, very happy about it.
Well, tell me this, Alex, will it continue to be an 18 unit since you want to include the parking?
Yeah, it will have to be 18 units. So they'll have to find out how we're going to do parking. Maybe, some carport, elevators. So, but yeah, it's going to be 18 units. And the other thing that we asked them to do, to come up with a blended model that have maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and loft, because they will only come for 1-bedroom apartment. And we want to give chance to some families to move in there.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you, the three of you, for your insight and information. All right, our next item is an update on the Redondo Beach Pallet Shelter project. I'm going to talk very quickly and briefly, and then I'm going to pass it over to the experts. I just want to say this, the fact that we pulled this off in about a 3-month period, to me, it's one of the fastest things I've ever seen happen in the 5.5 years I've been on council in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that it was not only just the city, but the city and the county and Harbor Interfaith all having to row in the same direction, it just really speaks to the teamwork at our city staff level, from Public Works, Community Services. Thanks to John LaRock, who is no longer with us, but he is now with Torrance for his work on this. And then, of course, thanks to Jennifer and Ivan and the whole team at Janice Hahn's office. It really was just an amazing effort to coordinate everything. So, but I really want to pass this off to Shari and Lisa, because they're the ones who are actually making it happen on a day-to-day basis. Our first residents, I think, moved in on the 28th. So why don't you guys take over from here and give an update on where we're at?
Thank you, Christian. So yeah, first off, Happy New Year to everybody. 2021 hopefully is going to be a lot more hopeful than the last year, but you talked about 2 months. I remember our very first conversation about opening this site happened for us on November 23rd. And when there was original discussions of having at least one resident moved in by December 30th, I just took a collective deep breath and said, okay, let's do this. So we do have a 15-unit pallet shelter that's on a Department of Public Works site that they converted into, which is over near the South Bay Galleria. The goal, as we stated, was to open the shelter by the end of 2020, have at least one resident moved in by December 30th. We officially were site ready and moved in clients on December the 28th. I think I was a little overly ambitious on the first day because I thought we could move all 15 in one day, but Mother Nature had a different plan. It was pouring down rain that day. And as most people know, trying to find homeless who are hunkering down and trying to stay dry was a little bit more of a challenge. So we were able to get everybody moved in by December the 30th. And I really want to, my hats off to the staff. We were competing with other staffing issues even going on within the organization, having people quarantined. So whoever we thought we could leverage. 2020, to say the least, has been a tricky year to, just continue to maneuver and navigate through homeless services. So we were able to pull it off, and I'm really, really grateful. On the very first day that we opened up, we had members of the faith community come out. They made up all the beds in all the units, and even brought laundry detergent and quarters, because there's no on-site laundry facilities for the residents to go off and clean their laundry. And, again, as Christian had mentioned, it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of Zoom meetings with Redondo Beach staff, including Department of Public Works, the city attorney's office, city manager's office, our city council members, Supervisor Hans, and even DHS, who is our funders for this particular project. So, having those conversations and continually rowing in the same direction and getting this project done was great. And I really want to, kind of tip my hat to the Department of Public Works. I know it was their job to put this site together, to get all the pallets constructed and put together, to get the site leveled. They spared no detail in the work that they did to get this site up and running. And I think what was even more important to me too was when one of them mentioned to us the fact that what this site was going to be used for really meant a lot to them. It was not an ordinary project for them. And they were grateful to have the opportunity to be able to set the site up. So I just really want to thank them for, expressing that to me too. It meant a lot. So our staffing on site, we have one on-site program manager who is Lisa Gray. We have a case manager. We have 24/7 resident aides. So we have 3 different resident aides that work throughout the day and night. We have around the clock security that is on site. We have on site, we have a mobile shower unit. We have porta potties, hand washing station. And then the 15 individual units are actually really, really nice. They have air conditioning, they have heating. There are some of them that are set up and equipped to have 2 beds. However, with the current COVID protocols, we are only allowed to use 1 at this time. Meals are catered in through Beacon House, which is a men's treatment center over here in San Pedro. So they're bringing in individual meals, hot meal breakfast, lunch, and then even a hot meal dinner. And then we're also too at this time, we're looking at, additional services that we could bring on site. So I'm in the process of having conversations with Beach City's Health District, who's going to be doing the healthcare for the residents on site. And I'm really, really happy to report that we had 2 short stay residents because they moved into permanent housing already. So I think everything is moving very fast at this site, which is not a bad thing. It is absolutely what, our vision and our goal is, but we've had one resident that is going to be moving to New York to live with her aunt. And then the other one had a previous position as an in-home healthcare provider, and that job opened back up for her. So she'll be living on site and providing care to her patients. So we're excited, and we already put 2 more people on our prioritization list. So these are expressly people that are experiencing homelessness only in the city of Redondo Beach. And they are folks that are known to our teams that are out there that have worked in the city for the last 3 years. So really grateful for the opportunity. I love our small little micro community, and I really just see, some great things that are going to come out of this project.
Yeah, and I should say, I have a quote from one of our public works employees who said, of all the projects I've worked on, this one makes me the proudest. So it really was that way from the ground level up. Lisa, did you want to add anything from your perspective?
I just want to thank Sherry for just everything she has done to get us up and running. And the team that is here is phenomenal. Ramon and Lila and Matthew, they're just wonderful. So I'm very blessed to be working with such a wonderful team. And I can't tell you how rewarding it is to work for something like, I mean, these people getting off the streets and living here and acclimating to the environment. They're doing very well. Everyone is so sweet and kind, and it's just been a pleasure.
Wonderful. Are there any questions? Alex.
Okay, congratulations on that. I'm hoping that maybe I'll drive by just to look at it. I know, because of COVID, probably you guys don't want to visit, but I would love to see it. Okay.
Yes.
And can you give me like an estimate how much it'll cost you guys a month to run that?
For the services?
Yes.
Sherry, do you want to?
I'm trying to think, I don't have a monthly cost. It is a 6-month project, Alex. And what I can do, I don't have the budget sitting right in front of me. And today has been one of those days where I've been working on numerous other little projects and numbers. So, and plus I'm getting old and don't remember numbers that well. But I can definitely get that information to you if you want to get a hold of me. And as far as coming out and doing a site visit, we can arrange that.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No
Yeah,
problem.
it's almost nondescript, Alex. You could literally drive past it and not realize that you did. So Janet, I saw your hand up.
Congratulations. I am so thrilled for all of you in the city of Redondo. Woohoo! This is great. I am so happy for you. The city of Los Angeles is spending $131,000 per pallet shelter. I was wondering if you know what your cost per pallet shelter is.
I believe far less. I think the city of LA had much higher startup costs. Our startup costs, and these are rough estimate numbers, were more in the $400,000 range and less. We were really looking for a site that was almost ready to go. So most of our site prep was just laying down some asphalt and concrete with ADA ramps. A perimeter fence, and then running electrical to it, where I know like the city of LA was running sewer and water lines, and so their costs were dramatically higher for a couple of those sites, as the LA Times article was kind of referencing. So we had a budget, we were looking at monies right from the get-go and what was possible. And so we were really trying to do it on as much of a shoestring budget from a setup perspective as possible. But I can also, get those hard numbers for you as well, Janet, if you'd like. And then the bulk of the cost comes from the services portion, Sherry and her team, and offering 3 meals a day and the 24/7 security. Like, the minute you start to add those in on a 24/7 basis, and maybe John LaRock, who, can speak to this as well, that's where you really start to see the majority of the costs come up. But each of the pallet shelters individually, I think was like maybe somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 for each unit. So I think the one-time cost for buying we bought 16 shelters was roughly around 150,000.
Yeah, great. We're talking to other people about considering this. So if at some point you have the figure, we'd like to be able to show that some other locations that it can be done for a lot less. So that's why I was asking. Congratulations again. So excited. I'm so happy for you guys.
Sure. And I'm sure, yeah, Gabby, before we move on to either other questions or the next item, I don't know if you want to weigh in on what the costing is for your pallet site, because I don't think the LA Times was talking about that one in that article. Okay, or she has stepped away. So are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on to Lori, City Staff Training Module 101.
Okay, well, actually, before Lori gets started, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on how this training has all come about. So as I'm sure you all remember, the COG, and Christian referenced it earlier, we did receive some innovation funds through Measure H from the county. And some of that money is directed towards developing education and training, because that just seems to be an area that's really lacking. You know, either whether it's city staff training, whether it's for our elected officials, whether it's for the business community or the general public. And so Lori actually was tasked with working with LASA and the Homeless Initiative, as well as Nancy Wilcox from the South Bay Coalition and Homelessness, and then our beach cities. So John LaRock was actually part of it, and I believe George Gabriel was also part of it at the beginning. And so they also worked with folks from the San Gabriel Valley COG and a few of the cities out in that area and their CES lead. Oh, that's right. So Harbor Interfaith was also part of this project. And really it took, a lot of time to go over and figure out what's the best way that they can present this information. And the whole idea is that it can be somebody, a city staff person can sit down and watch this, watch these slides and really get a good basis and a good kind of background on what homelessness is and what are some of the first steps for finding some of the solutions. So, and what we're working on right now is working with all of our city contacts to be able to customize there are a few slides that can be customized that are going to be city specific resources and information. And so right now, the one that Lori's going to share with you is the one that we've started working on for the city of Carson. So Lori, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Okay, you ready to share the screen? Okay, great. Okay, well, Happy New Year, everybody. So our goal with this module is to help, like Grace said, the city staff be informed on many aspects of homelessness, and most importantly, be well-versed in knowing how to respond to any inquiries in situations in their respective cities. So for today, we're going to go through the slides at a much faster pace than an actual training session would go at. We'll take questions at the end, and while going through this, please be thinking about anything we may have missed as we're looking for any city-specific information that you'd like to see included in your module. So each city presentation will include the city logo. Information that is custom will appear highlighted today, but will not be highlighted in each city's final version. And as Grace said, we're looking at the city of Carson. So we will cover what homelessness looks like, causes of homelessness, facts versus myth, and homelessness services specific to each of the cities. And as stated, the purpose of this training module, next slide, is to provide a general understanding of homelessness in each city, along with the facts versus myths and guidance on service referrals. Next slide. Grace. Didn't go to next slide.
Doing it. So David, are you, oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to review what homelessness looks like in your city. We will use the term people experiencing homelessness when referring to individuals who do not have a fixed place to live, such as individuals living on sidewalks, in tents, in makeshift shelters, in vehicles, which are all places not meant for human habitation. Also included are individuals living in shelters or motels. Sorry, my page stuck. Okay. Okay, my apologies. So people experiencing homelessness are also individuals who are fleeing from domestic violence, couch surfing with friends or family, and those at risk of becoming homeless in the very near future. We want to look at all of these. Statistical data on homelessness is collected through the annual point in time homeless count, which most of you know, conducted by LAHSA at the end of January. However, citing COVID concerns, the 2021 count will only include data for those inside shelters and will tally the number of beds and units available to people experiencing homelessness through various government programs. The statistics help determine the types of resources needed. Each city has access to reports and data from the annual homeless count. LAHSA provides data reports by city, planning area, city council district, and much more. The South Bay Coalition to End Homelessness also provides data to help city analyze their geographic situations. These reports are very helpful tools to track changes and trends in each city. Now we're going to take a look at both systemic and personal situations that are considered root causes of homelessness. Next slide. Here is a partial list of many systemic challenges facing individuals, with the result being lack of a suitable place to live. As you can see from this list, there's many reasons shown, thus there are many solutions to tackle each of these reasons. Next slide. So here's a list of personal challenges facing individuals causing homelessness. So it's important to note that many causes have nothing to do with personal choices, but rather due to circumstances beyond control, such as domestic violence, low income, and aging out of foster care. So a myth is a widely held but falsely belief or idea. The more myths are voiced, the more people tend to believe they're true. But myths are not based on facts. The myths about homelessness are widespread, so it's very important to change that dialogue and dispel those myths with the facts. We're now going to take a look at some of the most common facts versus myths to better illustrate what we're talking about. Okay, myths that most people experiencing homelessness are from out of town. I've seen and heard this many times, but the homeless counts consistently demonstrate how inaccurate this myth is, with data reflecting that approximately 80% of unsheltered have been here for more than 5 years, and 70% have been in LA County for over 10 years. They're not from out of town. How many of us have heard that the myth that people experiencing homelessness are just lazy and need to get a job like the rest of us have to do? The facts are many full-time jobs in LA do not pay enough for our high cost of living, and there are many barriers for some individuals to even secure full-time employment. The myth that all homeless have a mental illness or on drugs is a case of which came first. Many living on the streets self-medicate with drugs or alcohol to cope with their situation. Research has shown that substance abuse is actually more likely a result of homelessness rather than a cause. It is probably more of a judgment than a myth when people say the homeless don't need a cell phone because that's considered a luxury. The fact is, cell phones are the way for them to stay connected to the world, especially to needed services. That is a need, not a luxury. How often do you hear the myth that people experiencing homelessness are all dangerous and criminals? The fact is, many people who are experiencing homelessness are more likely to be victims of a crime than to commit a crime. The myth that they just made bad choices indicates that people believe being homeless was a choice. But the fact is, in a high percentage of situations, as I mentioned earlier, homelessness is a result of something totally out of their personal control, such as losing a job, being a victim of domestic violence, rent increases, medical issues, etc. Arresting the homeless as the best solution is again more of a judgment rather than a myth. But the fact remains, it is not a crime to be homeless. Arresting people for petty nuisance crimes just burdens our justice system, as this provides no lasting solutions. No one wants to be homeless, living in squalor, So the myth that people on the streets like the lifestyle and freedom is just not accurate. There have been a small percentage of service-resistant people on the streets, but that does not represent the majority. And it's important to understand the history of why some people have been resistant to accepting shelter. Recent changes in shelter policies have resulted in an increase in shelter and service acceptance. Some people believe that because they don't see families visually out living on the streets, that that's not really a common situation, but it is. The facts show that families know how to stay well hidden in order to protect their children, and that's why we won't necessarily see them. The myth that we don't know how to end homelessness, that's not true. Many programs and funding are devoted to address the severe lack of affordable housing, which is one of the leading root causes of homelessness. The housing first method that opens doors to stable housing without preconditions was first introduced in the 90s and has become a widely accepted model in more recent years. The coordinated entry system, known as CES, creates a real-time list of individuals experiencing homelessness in our communities and is a means to efficiently match people to available housing resources and services that best fit their needs. lahop.org. It's a countywide outreach program referral system to assist people experiencing homelessness. All should be encouraged to fill out a LAHOP request when you see someone experiencing homelessness needing help. Call 211 instead of contacting LAHOP if the situation involves a family with minor children. The 211 website offers a guide to services, resources, and information about shelters and housing, food programs, mental health programs, and more. Emergency referrals. Of course, immediately call 911 for medical and mental health emergencies instead of using either LAHOP or 211. If the situation may concern illegal activity, call your local law enforcement agencies. For domestic violence situations, refer them to the domestic violence agencies shown here. So this is a custom slide that we would do for each city to identify the homeless services available in addition to the LAHOP and 211. Here's where we're asking for your help to customize the slide for your city. For instance, this is information that we took off the Carson website, but we've been reaching out to each city to ensure we have all the available resources used in each city. Another custom slide is to provide additional homeless service referrals. But I want to highlight that your role is not to be a homeless case manager. That's very important, but rather to make referrals to resources in or near your city. Of course, that message is to the city staff. Program updates and enhancements are continually being made to improve services. Certainly the COVID pandemic brought new situations and with that new resources. Especially important is for all safety protocols to be followed. This slide identifies some video and written documents that city staff would find very helpful. So that is the speed version of our training presentation. And I'm not sure if Grace mentioned, but this is training 101. And we're also in the works on a more in-depth training 201 that will talk about trauma-informed care and be a deeper dive. So I thank you for your time, and hopefully you can send us any ideas. And does anybody have any questions right now?
Lori, I'll start. So I saw that one, had Carson's logo at the bottom. Are you preparing that for each city and sending it off to city management and or department heads? What is the dissemination of this information to city staff?
Absolutely. So I've already started one for each of the cities. Okay. And so I wouldn't be sending it all to the city staff till I work with somebody to verify that the resources we have, I'm using the right logo. But yes, we want this to appear as something custom for their city staff.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions for Lori? All right. Oh, go ahead, Gabby, and then Jeff.
Sorry, I know that it's kind of complicated, but in my conversations with a lot of other small cities, I realize that there's not that there's misconception, but maybe not enough understanding of how the Boise ruling affects them and how it should affect their inability to enforce. And in speaking sometimes with the sheriff's department, which a lot of these cities contract with, there seems to be some disagreement there. Like the sheriff has told me on many occasions from different departments, you know, we're not here to create the laws, we're here to enforce them, and the cities enforce them. So can we maybe just add something about Boise ruling and how that plays into the city's responsibility to provide housing first before they can do enforcement?
I'm going to try and field this one, Grace, and you jump in if I'm wrong. We're just informing the cities with what resources are available. We're not getting into, you know, how law enforcement in that city should or shouldn't be doing things. I'm not sure that's an area that this training would include. Grace?
Yeah, actually, Gabby, that's a really good question. And as I'm thinking about it, I think that might be one more additional fact versus myth that we could add to the slide, you know, about really what the misconception is of the Boise ruling, and then really kind of talk about what the role is in terms of law enforcement and housing first. So I appreciate that very much. I think that's definitely something that we should add to the facts versus myths.
Yeah, that's good, Grace. That would be a great place to put it there. Thank you.
I think that would be super helpful. And at the end of the day, each individual city attorney is going to interpret that ruling, you know, slightly differently. You know, we've seen that already happen in other jurisdictions. But just giving at least a baseline amount of information and maybe links to resources, other cities that are dealing with it in one way or the other, allows cities to see what is going on. And at some point, we may want to even invite like Judge Carter to come and present to this group, you know, just to even talk about things from his perspective. And, you know, since he is the kind of the big name in this area right now. So
that would be wonderful. I like
that. Yeah, no, thank you both. And I just want to say that the important thing here and why we really stress the myths versus facts is there's just too much bad information that gets spread, especially with social media and things like that. And it has to start from the city staff. And if they have an understanding of homelessness, how people became homelessness, they can start that conversation, and that dispelling the facts trickles down. And I think that education is really important.
Yes, I agree. Okay, any other questions or comments for, oh, Jeff, sorry, I think you did have.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Lori, I can't say how much I appreciate what you're doing and what you all are doing in the South Bay cities in regard to this. Because we have folks in our right of way who are residents of your cities. And we want to work as much as possible with everything that you just talked about on a granular level with each of the cities as they're approaching taking care of their homeless residents as possible. So if there's ways we could key in with that, we're very happy to do that.
Thank you, Jeff. And you know what, I forgot, we're going to be adding PATH as another one of the resources in our presentation. So that was my bad. Thank you.
Well, that's okay. I'm with Caltrans.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah.
Lori, I sent you a private message with my email. This is China Gersner. I'm with Caltrans. I'm the homelessness liaison. And I use a lot of this dialogue. But again, Caltrans, as Jeff was saying, we're agency of infrastructure and engineers, and we are not sidestepping being a partner in this humanitarian crisis. And whatever we can do to support city and county's efforts, as well as educate ourselves as much as we can to be better partners with the cities and counties, we're going to do that so that we can, you know, really support the efforts in this crisis. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, China. That's a great idea. I mean, we started off with this type training. We've also presented some information to the business community. So wherever that you see this has value, we can certainly customize and get the right information. Yes, I'll get something to you. And I did meet you on a Caltrans presentation a few weeks back. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, China. Okay, Courtney and Hallie, you guys are up.
Hello, hello everybody. Happy New Year. It's me and Haley, and Jasmine actually is on the call today. Wanted to introduce Jasmine. She may look familiar. She was a former COG outreacher, and now she's been promoted to program manager. She oversees our COG team as well as our recovery rehousing team. And so she will talk a little bit later. Okay, so we were not presenting at the November meeting, so this is information from September, September through December. So you can go to the next slide. So I think last time we met in September, we were looking for to fill up the staff. We are happy to report that we were fully staffed, but one staff member moved over to the recovery team. So we have one more staff position to fill for COG, and then we'll be full. So these are some of the newer staff. Cindy, she was the one that actually moved over to the recovery team here at the top. And then at the bottom, you know, John in the middle. And then we have Valerie and, hold on, let me move my screen. Oh, and then Stephanie over to the right. And then we have Anna, she's our problem solving specialist, but sometimes we just all work together out in the streets. And so, of course, the services we're providing are more intense. More intensive street case management now versus the regular outreach, which we were doing before. It's kind of the same, but we do kind of just go that extra mile with participants. We want to see them from the streets to their units, and we'll do everything in between to make that happen. So you can go to the next slide. So LA HOP, of course, Lori just talked about LA HOP. Continue to send those requests. While we were building up, you can go to the next slide. While we were building up the team, we had to pause on the LA HOP request. And so we started back in November, I believe. And so since November, we've gotten 7, but we will get those increased. We let Harbor Interfaith know today. Well, we let them know a while back that we can start taking more LA HOP requests. So we should be seeing that number increase by the next time we meet. Next slide. So our deliverables so far this year, well, since the last time we met, we've permanently housed 12 folks. They made it home. And then we successfully increased 2 people's income. So right now, so a couple of things with the deliverables right now. Before we were doing referrals made, and these are actually now referrals attained. And so these are folks, these numbers moving forward would be people that actually went to the doctor's appointment, went to the mental health, made the actual appointments versus us, giving them information. So that's why these numbers look like this right now. And then COVID right now, some services where we used to be able to drive folks to are not available right now. And then we have to be on the phone with folks a little longer. So it's just taking a little longer right now with COVID. And the team currently right now is case managing about 75 people, and they're all in the process of looking for units. Next slide. So these are the Leachmans. They made it home. They were homeless in Inglewood and Lawndale area. And we started engaging them at the Lawndale PRK site. And they are mother and son. And the mom, sorry, I have to move this thing over. The mom had her own business, but then she wasn't able to do it. And then her son had to step in and help. And then he's now looking for employment, and they are in a unit that is affordable. And so we hope to have them be successful in that permanent housing situation. She was very excited when they got housed. They're very sweet people. I met with them a few times over at the Lawndale PRK. And when they moved in, she said, God is good. PATH staff are hardworking and committed. Thank you for them. And we always love when our participants make it home and, don't have to worry about that street stuff any longer. So. All right, so now this is more slides when we're out in the pictures when we're out in the streets, just to give you all a visual like what it's looking like out there. We are socially distanced as much as possible. We are spending not as much time in certain encampments if they're larger and we're not able to get the, keep that safe social distance. But Jasmine can talk a little bit more about some of the highlights that we do, out in the streets and what we've been doing. Jasmine?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So some of the differences right now, because of COVID, things have really changed the way our teams can really refer and link people to community resources. So in the past, where we were able to drive someone really quickly, things have changed, as Courtney mentioned. So what we're doing right now is, building up and, getting new information with all the COVID changes. A lot of agencies have now, like the South, the one stops have, gone fully remote. So if we want to link someone to employment, we actually have to take our laptops out there and, do a whole orientation just with them because they don't have access to do it independently. So we've kind of just, shifted now. So what we're doing is doing weekly check-ins for any new updates for COVID with the resources. So one of the things, we check in with the ABH sites and the local shelters, so like Doors of Hope and Beacon Light, to see if, they're still open, under quarantine, all that kind of updates. But it's also a good point where we can get new referrals in. And some of those people have been now successfully linked to the new recovery rehousing program. And some of those have even, started, doing unit applications. And the team is also going to unit viewings and specifically trying to link them to their, the area where they have community ties. In December, with the holidays, we were actually able to go, because we do also have people in our retention aspect for the COG. We were actually able to take both our housed and our unhoused participants jingle bags. So it had a lot of like cold weather items, so like blankets, scarves, beanies, but even just fuller hygiene kits with whole shampoos for people that are housed. A lot of essentials, that necessarily they needed to pay for it themselves. So it was really nice. So in the pictures that you guys see here, it's some of our team just going ahead, picking them up and then dropping them off to the local encampments that we go to.
Yes, and we're also participating in Redondo Beach Homeless Court, and we are doing joint outreaches with Harbor Interfaith and the rest of the folks through the coordinated entry system on the Judge Carter encampments. And so I think that's everything. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for the PATH team? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thank you. I just want to make a comment to Jackie and Olivia. I read this morning that the COVID cases, in our unhoused community are growing right now with the surge, and workers that are out there from both Harbor Interfaith and PATH, they technically should fall into the phase 1B for vaccinations. But I think it would behoove us as a COG to maybe send a letter to public health and or Supervisor Hahn's office to see what we can do to expedite that for the Harbor Interfaith and PATH members who are actually out there putting themselves in danger's way in a sense. Just a thought. So
Christian, we did receive notification from Department of Health Services to prioritize us for vaccines. So it's just a matter right now of finding appointments. Literally a half an hour after that email went out, all the appointment slots at numerous different sites were already filled. So we've already had 3 staff that have been vaccinated, and we are working on a standby too.
Okay, great. I just don't want to see you guys fall through the cracks,
Oh, no, that is so appreciated. And Sherry's right. I think everybody jumped on their computers all at once. I'm curious as to fire and police. I don't know when and where they are in the
they're also in that phase 1
in the queue. Okay.
So,
but we appreciate you advocating for us. Yes.
Yeah. No,
Thanks,
some local departments have been able to get vaccinations in the phase 1A form, but that has not been consistent, I think, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So, but great. Okay. All right. So CES, Brianna.
Good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year. Again, my name is Brianna Jydram. I'm the regional coordinator for the Adult Coordinated Entry System in SPA 8 at Harbor Interfaith. And just a few updates as it relates to the Coordinated Entry System as a whole, and some of our updates that I provided previously. So as previously mentioned, we are still operating the San Pedro interim housing site due to COVID restrictions and we were required to do some decompression. So we're down to 32 beds that we're able to fill from 40 at the interim housing site. And that is working well. And then at the Abridge home here in San Pedro, we also needed to decompress. I shared this update in November from 100 to 75 beds to maintain the COVID-19 protocols as it relates to Department of Public Health and Department of Health Services. Both interim housing sites have ongoing case management and are moving folks into housing at quite a rapid speed. So we're happy to see that those things are still taking place in the midst of really trying time in this pandemic. As Courtney mentioned in her presentation, they have recovery rehousing as a program at PATH. We do as well at Harbor Interfaith. And so working to ensure that folks who are COVID high risk are accessing housing options, particularly those who are COVID high risk and are also vulnerable in other capacities. And so we have some bridge subsidies, which are for our more vulnerable folks. And then we have straight recovery rehousing, which is for our mid vulnerability folks, folks that can get on their feet a little bit quicker. And so we're working to ramp that up. Of course, hiring at this point has been a little bit of a challenge, but we've been able to actually make some progress. So we're hoping to be able to get that program fully up and running soon here in January. But we've been able to make placements, having some other folks assist, some of our housing navigators in the Northern Hub and in Long Beach and in the Harbor Hub, assist with some of the placements, at least to get this program off the ground. So it isn't staying stagnant. We are actively working to house folks through that program. As it relates to prevention, I typically talk about prevention just because I think right now we hear about the eviction moratoriums and we hear about folks falling behind on rent because they haven't been able to work with COVID and kind of the ripple effects of that. And so we continue to receive calls for families and adults who are in need of guidance through the prevention process. I know in terms of the federal dollars, things continue to change weekly. I know from a county perspective, there's more information now as of yesterday as it relates to rental assistance programming and eviction moratorium extensions and things like that. So that's information that we're consistently trying to stay abreast of so that we can best kind of point the folks that are calling us in the right direction. With that coupled, the legal services that we have available to us through Measure H and the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. So ensuring that our folks that are asking for assistance understand all of their rights, and then also just making sure that we are following every step in the process, because again, it has changed drastically in the last multiple times drastically in the last 9 months. And so it's just trying to stay on top of that. And then in December 2020, I believe it was the 10th, if I remember correctly, we co-hosted a homelessness roundtable with the beach city, with our partners in the beach cities, Redondo, Hermosa, and Manhattan, in which we took the opportunity to explain our relationship and partnership to constituents from the beach cities. They were able to connect to the updates via Zoom. They were able to submit questions that we could then answer. They were able to submit the questions ahead of time so that we could answer them on the call. And then they were also given a follow-up email address to send follow-up questions that they might have so that we could address any other questions that might have went unanswered. I feel like it went really well. We had a good response and received some really thoughtful follow-up questions. So just as it relates to kind of how is the pandemic going to affect homelessness? Of course, we don't have data on that at this point, but I thought it was a really thoughtful question. And then just folks really intrigued by some of the quick scale up that we've been able to do throughout LA County, from Project Room Key to pallet shelters to bridge homes and things like that, and just kind of what that process has looked like for us and our folks. And so really proud of that event, and really, really thankful that we were able to do that. We had originally, of course, planned to do that in person back in March, and I don't need to say it for probably the 50th time, but of course COVID happened, and we had to, transfer everything over to online. So, but still worked well. Just a little bit about goal attainment. Of course, the contract year started July 1st. And so the numbers that I have for families, adult and youth are through the end of December 2020. So we're about halfway through the fiscal year. And so for individuals, spa-wide, we've assessed 229 individuals, and we've placed 22 individuals into rapid rehousing with a retention rate of 90%. We've also placed 20 chronically homeless single adults into permanent housing via housing navigation. And then we've had just a few prevention placements through the program, but all of whom have maintained their housing after prevention assistance, 100% retention. And then in the youth world, which is our 18 to 24-year-olds, there's been 27 households assessed since the beginning of July. 15 youth have been placed into housing through rapid rehousing with 100% retention. And there is prevention available for youth, but we've received 0 referrals since the eviction moratorium was put in place. And then for families, our families with minor children or women who are pregnant, we have assessed 180 households. We've placed 86 families in housing through rapid rehousing spa-wide with a 95% retention rate. And we've assisted 3 families with prevention placements, but we've assisted many, many more individuals and families through referrals to legal services and other organizations that have funding available. So the 3 isn't necessarily reflective of the number of calls that we get, but is reflective of the number of folks that we've financially assisted.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any questions for Brianna? All right. Well, thank you so much again. All right. Legislative update. Why don't we start with Jeanette?
Sure. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jeanette with U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein's office. I hope this finds you safe and healthy. As you know, we started the 117th Congress earlier this week, and most of you know there have been pretty bad news coming out from the Capitol today. And what I can tell you is that the senator and our staff who are at the Capitol are safe right now, and we're not quite sure about the next steps for the Electoral College vote, but the Capitol Police are handling the situation now. I do want to let you know that the senator will be introducing 2 new bills related to housing and homelessness. The one that I want to share real quickly is the Affordable Housing Redevelopment Act. As you know, affordable housing is more important than ever as the COVID pandemic has made it worse and millions are facing eviction and foreclosure. So this legislation would authorize the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. It authorizes $1.5 billion in competitive grants to help state and local governments purchase blighted, vacant, abandoned, surplus properties and convert them into affordable housing. So that will drop January 21st. If you are interested in support letters, let me know. I can drop in the chat or share with Grace some of the text and summaries if you're interested, and we'll be sharing more information as the bill moves in this new Senate. So that's it. Thanks.
Great. Why don't
I have a question. I have a question for Jeanette.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how does your bill define affordable housing? I think in many times when we talk about affordable housing, various legislation has different definitions of it, and many times developers wind up using that term and developing really high cost housing, which was supposed to have started out as affordable. So what does your bill say is affordable housing?
Yeah, the new units would serve households and the income wouldn't exceed 120% of the area median income, and 25% of the housing would serve households whose income does not exceed 50% of median income. It gets wonky, so I can send you the language. It's a competitive grant program administered by HUD, so it'd be using HUD's terms. So if that is helpful, but it can get a little wonky, and like, I don't know if everyone knows area median incomes very well, so it might be a little bit boring for everyone to discuss right now, but I'm happy to share it with you in the text.
Thank you.
Okay, so definitely send that information on to Grace so she can pass it along to all of us. We're talking a lot about housing at the COG level these days, so anything would be helpful. Any other questions for Jeanette? All right, thanks so much for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Janet.
Hi, good afternoon. Janet with Congressman Ted Lieu's office. I'm not sure if I had mentioned to you on October 30th, the congressman introduced the Prevent Homelessness Act that would provide grants to establish housing stabilization funds. This would cover expenses such as rent, utilities, legal services, short-term things that would help hopefully prevent someone from falling into homelessness. So just wanted to let you know that's he's looking forward to pushing that through in the 117th Congress. And I just thought I would mention in the recent COVID relief bill that passed, Section 501 talks about emergency rental assistance. And this appropriates $25 billion through the Treasury to provide state and local government entities funds. The funds would be required to be allocated to state and local governments within 30 days of the enactment. Eligible households are defined as renters who have a household income not more than 80% of that area median income, which that Jeanette referred to, have one or more household members who can demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. And 3, have one or more household members who qualify for unemployment benefits or experience financial hardship due to the pandemic. Assistance would be prioritized for renter households whose income do not exceed 50% of the area median income, which I'd have to look up for you to find out exactly what that means. It also called for the CDC eviction moratorium to be extended till January 31st, 2021, which is not a whole lot of time, but there's a new Congress, so let's see if that changes. I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Janet?
I just, it's Olivia again. I just have a question. How do you find out what your area median income is?
I knew you were going to ask that. I will find that out and have that for you next month.
When you say area median income, what does that mean? Your city, your county, or what?
I'm going to have all the answers about that for you next month. I just got this information an hour before we went on. So
all right,
unless Jeanette knows.
That's usually published on the city website and as well. City of Los Angeles publishes it every year.
Yeah, it should be in your housing element too, Olivia, or SCAG will have that data, both for the broader region and then kind of getting down to the more granular data usually.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
To Olivia, Kimberly Mack knows about that, okay? Olivia, you can ask Kimberly Mack, our housing director. She have all that information.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, Olivia, you good?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for Janet? All right. And I think Jennifer has signed off from Supervisor Hahn's office, so we won't go to her. So we'll move on.
Get back on. Her computer crashed, so she was texting me. So I think she's trying to get back on.
She's trying to get back on. Okay, if she comes back on, we'll go to an update from her. Why don't we go to Grace and Jackie for COG updates?
Well, and actually, before we do that, maybe we could introduce Lily Sofiani, who is with Supervisor Mitchell's office.
Oh, well, okay, perfect. Let's do that. Lily, I guess you weren't here earlier on, so welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm new to Supervisor Holly Mitchell's office and very excited to be here. And thank you, Grace, for inviting me to these meetings. I'll attend regularly. I was previously with Senator Holly Mitchell at the Senate. I was her district representative, covered homelessness, housing, and the aging population.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you want to share any legislative updates from your office perspective?
I don't have them right now. Again, I'm new and have not been able to partake in those meetings just yet. But next time I will definitely have some ledge updates.
Fantastic. And please feel free to invite Supervisor Mitchell to join us anytime she wishes as well.
Of course.
Okay. And did Jennifer get back on or no? I don't see her. Okay, so go ahead, Grace, if you want to start on your COG, and Jackie with your COG updates.
Okay, well, I'll just really kind of focus on our HomeShare South Bay program, because as you all recall, I think when we met in November, we had just launched the program. And then of course, as we were moving into the holiday season, things tend to slow down, but we are still, oh, okay, I just got a note from Jennifer, her computer is updating. So hopefully she'll be back on to join us. But anyway, we are about almost 3 months into the program, and we're really making a concerted effort on trying to find homeowners who would be interested in sharing their home with someone who may be recently experiencing homelessness or someone on the verge of experiencing homelessness. And so right now we have 20 housemates who have gone through our landing page to join up, and 4 homeowners who have signed up. And then those individuals are coming from the cities of Carson, El Segundo, Hawthorne, Hermosa Beach, Inglewood, Lomita, Redondo Beach, and Torrance. And then we have been really focusing our efforts with all of our cities to get information out there, work either via their websites or any newsletters that they have. And then we've also been able to give presentations to a couple of our cities, or a few of our cities, either in public comment, that was Torrance, as well as Manhattan Beach. And then we gave a presentation for at a Hermosa Beach City Council meeting. So we're trying to reach out to any of our cities that have commissions on aging or social services commissions, just trying to find any way possible to get the word out. Our intern, who has been working with us, Angela Williams, she is actually heading up our faith-based efforts. So she is reaching out to the faith-based communities as a way to, again, try to find interested folks who may be willing to open up their homes to, as part of the home sharing program. So I think that's it for HomeShare South Bay. And then, we presented on education and training, so we're moving forward with that. We're also developing that for the business community. And we're focusing in on safe parking. And then we're also going to be working on our client aid aspects so that we can get that out and rolling out in the very near future, so that our, oh, look at the cat. So that our cities and our service providers will be able to have some access to some additional funding to help out individuals experiencing homelessness.
Okay.
My update.
Jackie,
Okay.
did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did want to add something. Lily didn't mention it, but we all probably saw in the paper this morning that Phil Ansell is resigning from the LA County. He's retiring, excuse me. And so I think that in future meeting, maybe, I don't know by March if everything will be worked out, but maybe we can get a speaker sometime in the next 2 meetings to talk about what's happening with the homeless initiative. And I know, Lily, we might be calling on you and Jennifer to help us with that. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. The other thing is tomorrow we have a meeting, we have a subcommittee of the board that's looking into the spas, the service planning areas, and what they do and what they mean and what authorities they have. So that'll be a very interesting meeting. And then I'm going to turn it over to Christian, who can give a roaring update and announcement about our General Assembly.
Okay, so here we are, folks, a year later. And we didn't have the General Assembly because COVID hit last March. We are going to do the same. It's kind of a do-over, but we're going to do it virtually. So we've gotten so comfortable with Zoom and with the surge and everything. I'm hoping that you will all attend. We will be, I guess, sometime in the next couple of weeks, starting to send out our first invites for registration to the event. I believe it's on March 18th. Is that correct?
It should be emblazoned in your mind. And
yes. because I have nothing else in my mind.
Right.
And the theme again, I'll just remind you all from last year, it's intersections. We will have, related to this topic that we're all here today, we will have Lila Omora, who's works with Shari at Harbor Interfaith. She's our outreach navigator in Redondo Beach. She will be one of the presenters. But the overall theme, intersections, is really about how all these different areas we focus on here in policy as elected officials, as people who work at the staff level or in, you know, in the private entities that you each come from, everything intersects. So we're going to have speakers on housing and transportation and homelessness and economic development. And we're really going to be covering, you know, how we don't make decisions in a bubble. You know, the decisions we make as it relates to housing clearly have a direct and or indirect effect on homelessness, et cetera. So it should be quite an interesting day. Olivia Valentine, our chair, will also be a speaker on one of our panels in the afternoon. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else on this call that is engaged. Maybe we'll see if we can get former Senator Mitchell, now Supervisor Mitchell, to join us since she's local. We did invite her last year, but she couldn't get away because she was the budget chair in Sacramento. So, but March 18th, hold the date, and it will be virtual. So you'll be able to do it from wherever you are conveniently located. And that's it.
As always, it's free. We are looking for sponsors. If you know someone that would like to sponsor the event, we would love to have that, but for attendees, it's free. And when you get your invite, please sign up. And it's always a very interesting day. Thank you. Thank you, Christian.
And then I would just mention at the bottom of your of today's agenda, you'll see all the dates for this this Homeless Services Task Force for the year. So March, May, July, September, and November. So please just mark those down in your calendar. And then, of course, Grace and Lori usually get out the agenda a couple weeks and the registration information a couple weeks ahead of time, so you know what we will be discussing. But I do want to thank, we had a lot of my colleagues from different cities on today. I appreciate you all being here and taking this information back to your other colleagues. So thank you. And unless there are any other questions or comments.
I have the report from Jennifer. She texted it to me.
Okay. Go ahead, Grace.
That one. All right. The Board of Supervisors set aside $110 million in coronavirus funds to enhance rent relief program yesterday and extended the eviction moratorium through February of this year. They also passed a motion regarding promoting the faith community involvement in preventing and combating homelessness. They plan to hire a consultant to survey all faith organizations to look at programs and services the faith organizations are already offering and how the county could align its programs with what they are doing. The board will receive recommendations regarding the creation of a faith-based homeless coalition to work with our partners and to help the most vulnerable. And then the last thing she has is Project Home Key, the first Project Home Key that opened in Spa 8, which is actually in Long Beach. It opened on December 28th and is going well. It's a former Motel 6. So that is Jennifer's report.
Fantastic. All right. Any other comments or questions from anybody before we adjourn for today? All right, seeing none, then thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you guys in March. Take care.